My name's Joe Pekara, and I run and own Faro 171 Photography.
Awesome. And what kind of give us your backstory? What kind of got you into photography and music photography specifically?
I used to do music as an artist, and then it just got so time consuming. And then I love photography as art, and then my uncle passed away, and long story short, I got a great camera through that. So I inherited his camera and got to do a lot more different kind of photography, like long exposure, concert, long distance, like things farther away. And it kind of just went from there. And then music, I always had a love for music. So.
Did you kind of teach yourself photography or?
Yeah. I bought my first camera. It was just a digital one. And I just messed with it. And then when I got my uncle's, I kind of looked some stuff up on YouTube just because it was a HDR or HDR, sorry. I'm spacing out what his camera was.
DSR or DSLR?
DSLR thing. I'm thinking TVs right now. And so there's so much more settings that you could do where it's just a normal camera that you can't change lenses with, just has automatic settings and you don't really mess around with anything. So I watched a lot of YouTube, but the most important thing was going out and doing it. You can't learn until you do it. So
you've definitely done a lot of photography,
yes.
A lot of musical artists. We know that you were there at the Nappy Roots show that we had for Power. Can you tell me just a little bit more about what other musical artists you've shot for?
My first show was Nappy Roots. I did start with Thin Air Crew. I did a lot of their shows for a while. Nappy Roots was also my first show along with Thin Air Crew. They did the same show together. And then I did Hieroglyphics, and they were the first ones I actually was asked to work with. I couldn't do their schedule that they were asking for. And then they shot stuff over to Nappy Roots, and we kind of went from there. I've also done Wale, Young Buck, and Junior Records, and a few other small-town local artists.
Mm-hmm. What was the first Nappy Roots photography like, the first concert that you shot of theirs? Were you a fan of their music too before?
Mm-hmm. I watched them from when I was a little kid on MTV. I wasn't asked to photograph them specifically that night until that night. So I was just there for Thin Air Crew until the show started, a little before the show. Mm-hmm. I've always been a fan of Nappy Roots, and it was kind of stressful. And I didn't really know what I was doing because that was my first concert with that camera. So I was just winging it.
Was it at the Aggie too?
It was.
Oh, nice. And it's kind of dark in there.
Yep. The last show, now that, who owns it now?
Oh, yeah, the Mishawaka people, right?
Mishawaka.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The lighting in there is amazing. I had so much fun with this last show. With the lighting, I like to create, it's not paintings, but I call it light paintings. Just different backgrounds with the people. So we did a show in the Springs, Nappy did, and the light never changed. And so every photo that I sent, it just looked like it was the same song, just because it was purple and blue the whole night. And it was just it was kind of boring to edit, but
so lights are key
I love
for
lights,
performers. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What's it like now that you've had a bit more experience being a photographer at a show? Can you walk me a little bit through what your process is like? Do you have one, or do you just kind of start shooting?
It depends on the artist. Like when I did Wale, it's different because he's just one guy. He does have a guy that tours with him and sings choruses and then just parts for him. So with him, it's a little easier just because you don't have to see what other people are doing. And then with Hieroglyphics, they had about 7 people. So it was kind of like just focus on who's performing, not anyone to the side. And then, but with Nappy, I have their performance down. I mean, they switch it up a lot, but I know the songs by heart. Whereas Wale, it's just him. Hieroglyphics, I had to learn who comes in when because there's a lot of them. But I try to do crowd shots when possible. So, like with Nappy Roots, I know when they're going to asked to put their hands up a lot for a longer period of time, so it's a little easier to get that kind of shot. I know when they're going to do certain songs for certain lightings, so I kind of have a plan with them, but with other artists, I kind of just go with the flow.
Did you check the set list at all before?
For the artists?
Yeah.
Sometimes. Thin Air Crew, I kind of got to know their songs just from hearing them, and it was just two of them, and I kind of knew which ones would go. But Hieroglyphics was probably the hardest just because there's so many, and they had so many songs, I had no idea which ones they were going to do.
What is in your future? You've done a lot of really cool shows so far. What do you see coming up?
I don't know. I'm strictly with Nappy. I do Wale when I'm off of Nappy. I just love like wildlife photography. I love birds. I love raptors. I like shooting anything. The only thing I haven't really shot is a wedding. But that's what I enjoy. I don't do it for awards or anything.
Right.
I just do it to enjoy and keep impressing myself.
Yeah, and speaking of awards, we heard you've been nominated for some pretty cool ones, though, with the Grammys and the Smithsonian, I believe, right? Just
Yep.
kind of walk us through what were those acknowledged?
So those were through, you had to be signed, work with a major record label. So anyone on the street wasn't able to be in that competition, whatever you want to call it. So 5 of my photos were nominated out of over 5,000. And it was through a system called the Best Album Package. So a lot of people know about the artists that get Grammys, but no one knows about, they have an area for graphic design. So anyone that creates an album cover can win this award, or creates any, like if you look on iTunes, they have the art for just singles or anything. And then they have videos or videography, film. So any music videos, any promo videos. So like Andrew Yeager, who does a lot of the video for Nappy Roots, anything that he did could be put into that, and then photography. But as a whole, the label wants to win the best album, which would include the artist winning a Grammy. But no one's ever done it.
Oh,
So,
really?
Mine was for Nappy Roots. I wasn't with Wale at the time, so I could add 10. You can have a max of 5 photos per label or artist. It started with over 5,000, and it was every genre of music. So when we went there, it's kind of cool to see what other photographers worked with other artists that you essentially won over, who have done it for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So,
congratulations.
well, thank you.
Yeah, that's super
So-
awesome.
Were you at the ceremony of it?
Yep.
or-
So it came. I would get emails, and it would say these photos. They wouldn't show any other photos that were still in it. It would just say these photos of yours are still in it. It wouldn't say anything else. It wouldn't have any other photographer's name. And it was for the Smithsonian, and then no one knew. At least I didn't know it was for any kind of Grammy until it was a final. So once it became the final, it went down by like 1,000, and then it went to like 2,000, and then 1,000, and then like 500, 100. And then once it got to 50, I was really excited. And then it went down to one more, and then it went to the bottom 5 or top 5, and I had 2. So I got second and fourth if they wanted to place them, but
But what was like going to the Grammys? What was that?
stressful. It was quick. I went for one night. It was in D.C. It was at the Smithsonian in D.C. I didn't know I could bring anyone. They didn't tell me I could bring anyone. So it was just me and my manager, and there's like no phones allowed in there, so I got in trouble for snapping pictures. But the Grammys are the same way. There's no phones. Because I was offered to go to the Grammys if Wale made it past where he was. And you could only stand in like a box this big. And they would take my card and go through my photos. And if anyone on the red carpet passed that wasn't Wale, they would delete the photo. And there's only one photographer that photographs the entire Grammy. So
Oh my gosh.
they're really strict there.
Yeah, that's
I had no
crazy.
idea.
It's
But
gonna
yeah,
be
same
hard.
thing. It was cool. They showed every photo they showed all 5,000 that were entered, and they just did a quick slideshow, and then it had the names of the photographer and the artist they were working with. So it was cool to see all the different photographs.
And what year was this again?
Last year in
Last year.
November. Mhm.
Do you go on tour with Nappy Roots
Yep.
for every show?
Not every show. Most shows. Andrew does about every show.
Uh-huh. So you don't always stick in Colorado, though. You travel around with them?
Yep.
What's that
So,
like, being on tour with the band?
It's stressful, but fun. It's a lot of not sleeping.
Yeah.
Because they get to sleep after the show. I work after the shows. So in the hotels or on the airplane is when I'm editing photos and they're sleeping. So, or doing whatever they're doing.
Yeah. We had the chance to interview Nappy Roots when they were here, and they seemed like such cool and nice guys. Is that how you would describe them from being with them so long?
It was nice to meet someone you look up to and they're respectful. They treat you as you would hope someone would treat a human. They're not cocky. They're not into themselves. They're not in it for money or any of that. They treat their fans as they treat each other. And it's the best part of working with them. I don't know. I've met some interesting artists that aren't like that. So it's nice to work with the ones that are, especially when you looked up to them.
So where are some of the places you've traveled on tour?
A lot of East Coast, just because they're in the South. Like I said, they're building the brewery in Atlanta, Atlantucky. And so I do a lot of flying where they do a lot of driving. So I fly to them, they drive. Or I fly to them and drive with them. So I do kind of a lot more traveling than they do. But then, like, they're in California now, so they drove all the way to California from Atlanta. So
What's a tour bus like?
they just drive one of those, what are they called, sprinters or something? Like the long Mercedes van things. And then they pull the trailer that has their merch in it and their DJ equipment. So it's tight.
What's your favorite song of all for Nappy Roots? And then what's your favorite song to shoot in concert?
Window for both. Window just is an amazing song lyric-wise, if you actually listen to it. And it kind of changes the mood. If you listen to, or if you go to a concert, you kind of just go to have fun, where that song to me, I get chills every time I hear it, whether it's in the car or at the show. And to see people react to it at the show, to me, it just brings a different feeling to the show, where it has meaning and it's not just drink and have fun. It's not their favorite song, but Good Day probably.
Oh, yeah. Like everyone knows that one, so I bet they get excited in the crowd.
Yeah. So, but it's not their favorite song.
Yeah.
Right. So you're based out of Fort Collins, right? So are you from this area, or how did you end up
My
here?
entire family's from Chicago, but I've been here forever. So
You kind of talked about how great it is to work with someone like Nappy Roots, who you look up to as someone who has been so experienced in photography. And as you expand, I'm sure people will look up to your work as well, and they probably already do.
I hope so.
What is your advice for aspiring photographers and people wanting to get into this business?
I guess just from experience of people coming to me, a lot of people ask to be taught stuff. And I go on YouTube to watch how to do certain things. Like, I didn't know how to do a long exposure shot, like to shoot the Milky Way or anything. But a lot of people think, oh, if I watch this video, I'll do these exact settings and I'll get this exact picture. And you'll never have the same lighting as this person had at night or as you did yesterday or any other day in life. So I think the best way to learn photography is to just go do it. I've missed a lot of great shots, but I've learned from missing those shots, including Nappy Roots. I mean, there's shots I miss every show. And I shoot manual, though, so I never, like, autofocus you can kind of be behind the person if they're moving, or a bird or whatever, and the camera kind of corrects it and gets the shot for you, where I want to take the shot 100% myself. So if I miss it, then that's just my fault for not being ready or not having the right timing. And that's why I like to shoot birds. Birds in flight, especially when I'm not on tour, it keeps me moving as they would on stage, just with the quickness of how they fly. And you don't know where they're going to go. I don't know where Skinny's going to go. I know the lyrics he's going to sing, but I don't know exactly where they're going to move. So it just keeps me in rhythm when I'm not with them. I guess just going out and doing it. But you can learn online. You can learn a lot of different ways to shoot online. Like, we do a lot of steel wool. It's like where you light, looks like an SOS pad, and then you spin it, and it shoots sparks. I had no idea how to do that. But I learned it online. But you learn by doing it. We probably take like 30 different takes to get 2 shots. And it's a lot of patience. And I think that's a big thing too, especially if you want to do like wildlife. I probably sit out there for 2-3 hours just watching. A lot of people think you just go out, get the shot, and go home, but it's a lot of waiting. So patience, depending on what you want to do. But just go do it.
Yeah, music-wise, do you have a dream act or venue that you would like to shoot at?
Nappy Roots. And I don't just say that. I told my friend the other day my favorite artist is 50 Cent. But if he offered me any amount of money, just working with them now, I wouldn't want to work for anyone else in the way that I work with them. But venue, I got to go in the Madison Square Garden with them, but it was a first show. And to see that would be pretty cool because I think it's one of the biggest stadiums in the U.S. So that would be cool.
Yeah. What are the favorite ones you have shot at?
There was one in Rhode Island, and that's what I like about them is they go to these small towns. So what they do is they go to, like I said, of doing the Pepsi Center. And the reason they do this is you pay less people at a place like the Aggie than you would at the Pepsi Center. So you make more money, essentially. And you see more if you do. So we'll do 4 to 8 shows in Colorado. They're doing like 9 shows in California. And they just get to see more places that you would probably not go see. And so Rhode Island, for me, it was this little brewery on the beach. But Rhode Island's not a place I'd be like, oh, let's go vacation in Rhode Island. But I would now. Just seeing it. The beach was big boulders, rocky. I've never seen that before. So.
With Nappy Roots, you must stop at a lot of breweries, right?
Yes. There's a lot of breweries. And I'm not a huge beer guy, but it's fun to learn.
Yeah.
We went to Epic Brewing. There's one in Denver that I knew of. It was in Denver. We went to one in Salt Lake City. I mean, beer takes forever to make, so they kind of like show us parts, and then we got to taste one. And at the time, they were doing like a Def Leppard. I think it was like 8 different brews, but they were named off Def Leppard songs. And one of them, the brewery has kept an amethyst rock that's probably like 3 feet tall. And they boil the water with the amethyst rock in it. And then they let the hops soak in the amethyst. And I guess it creates sugar and salt off the rock. So we got to taste the beer without the amethyst and then with the amethyst. And it was disgusting without the amethyst.
Really? So it did make a difference.
And they've used it for like 4 years.
Cool. Do you have, I know you're not a beer guy, but do you have a favorite brewery or even just a place to go out in Fort Collins?
I've honestly never been to a brewery out here, except for Budweiser.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't
All right.
like-
I was like, you're one of the few.
But that's not, we don't go to, so I should say we don't go to those. We go to microbreweries. Mm-hmm. The largest one we went to was Blue Moon, but I wasn't at Blue Moon either. So, but I did go to Odell's in Denver, so I guess that's up here. And it was pretty good. I'm not a dark beer guy. I don't really know why. I just don't like the taste of it. But they had a good dark one. I can't remember the name of it, but it was good. The red truck looks interesting.
Yeah.
That's a big one, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been there. I'll have to try that one out.
Is there anything else you'd like to share before we go?
Just go do it if you're a photographer. Best things I've been told from Nappy Roots is show up. The biggest thing I've had to do is I'm a really shy person. And so going up and talking to people is not my plan to ever do in a room. But you have to learn to do it and kind of stepping out of your shell. Don't be shy and go out there and do it.
Yeah, I know it's always tough for photographers to be in front of the camera too, right? You know, usually they prefer to definitely be behind.
It is nice to get some shots of myself working, though.
Yeah, I bet.
So,
Well, thank you so much, Joe,
Yeah,
for
thank you,
coming
guys.
and talking to us. It was really great to hear about your process, and we can't wait to see more
awesome.
pictures from
Yeah,
you.
come to the next show.